Okay, good evening, everybody. If you can't hear me, please give me a sign in the chat. Somebody's saying their camera's not working. It doesn't matter about your camera not working as long as you can see us, because I've set everybody's camera to not come on. You're also should be on mute. And that's the reason is because we're going to have questions at the end so that we can do the presentations first and then have questions right at the end. So my name's Tamsin Caruana. I work at Majjistral Park. I'm the events officer. And with us today, we have Adrian Gatt from the Grow 10 Trees project. So this is, as I was saying before to some of you, this is one of our first online sessions. So we're going to be inviting people to talk about environmental topics that should interest people, basically. And I thank you to Adrian for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Tamsin.
So just briefly to go over the agenda, just quickly, I'm going to be talking just for a very short time about the summer forestation project at Majjistral Park. And then I'll be handing over to Adrian, who's going to talk about the importance of trees, species types and habitats in Malta, why we need trees in Malta, seed collecting and sowing tips, how to grow Maltese trees, and then we'll have questions at the end. We're aiming for an hour, but we may go a little bit over depending on questions, but we will try and keep it not longer than an hour or an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Okay, so again, for those who've just joined us, welcome everybody to this tree growing online workshop. Just a few more points. So we're going to have questions and comments at the end of the presentation. So please remain muted until then. At the end, you can unmute yourself and ask us questions directly through your video, or you can also post questions in the chat, and you can also do that throughout the presentation, and I will take a record of the questions and we can present them to Adrian at the end. So the presentation will be recorded. So if you don't want to be recorded, please stop your video. Just want to let you know about that. And the duration, as I said, should be about an hour. So afforestation areas at the Majjistral Nature and History Park, just briefly, we have 3 current afforestation areas at the moment. So the first one is at the Eindhoven Barracks, which is near the Majjistral Park Visitor Centre. The second one is called an area called Innahliya, and that's a little bit further on than the visitor centre, so quite close. Shar al-Hamra is quite close to Manikata Church. And then we have another 2 planned areas, so Einsnuba, which is near Einsnuba Tower or Tachantar Tower, and Il Prayet or Asambarani, which has been a long-term rehabilitation project for the last couple of years. Oh, it's not going to the next slide. Okay. So just to give you an idea of some of the trees that are present at each afforestation area, this is the barracks area outside the visitor centre. So over here we have approximately 200 shrubs and trees. The species include the fringed rue or Feigelin Maltese, the Maltese rock centauri, I think that's how you say it, which is Widnet al-Bahar, the sandarak, the carob tree. The sandarak is our national tree, by the way, and carob tree and olive trees. And then the next area in Nahliya, which was featured on the news this morning. So we now have approximately 1,800 shrubs and trees. So with this area, Adrian and his and the Grow 10 Trees project really helped us out with planting a big number of trees here. And we also had Ambient Malta this morning, who planted 1,000, I think it was trees, there might have been some shrubs. So that's increased the area to 1,800, which is quite impressive, should be an impressive afforestation area in the future. And these are some of the species that have been planted in this area. It's delayed with, oh, has it gone blank for everybody?
Yes.
Uh-oh. Oh, technology, that's the only thing with, oh, okay. Okay, and then we have Shar al-Hamra, just admitting people. At Shar al-Hamra, we have, again, approximately 2,000 shrubs and trees. The species here include the myrtle, which is called Rihan in Maltese, the African wolfbane. There's an olive tree grove in this area, quite a large one, and carob trees and the Holm oak, or the Sidrat al-Ballut.
If I may interrupt a bit, Tamsin, the Shara Hamra was the first event the Grow 10 Trees held way back in November 2017. So our event started from there, yes.
Okay, I didn't realise that it started back then. Okay.
That was the first activity we ever held.
Okay, so Shar al-Hamra was also helped by Grow 10 Trees and by Adrian, so that's great. Thank you for growing so many afforestation areas at Majjistral Park. Brilliant.
You're welcome.
And then just to point out that where the next two planned afforestation projects, which will probably involve you as well with these two as well.
Okay, hopefully.
They're at the northern boundary of the park. Well, Einsnuber is on the way to the northern part of the park, and then Il Praieto Asambarani is right at the top. Okay, so that was just a very brief introduction to the areas that we have at the park. So now I'll hand over to Adrian, who's going to take you through the main part of the presentation.
Thanks, Tamsin, and welcome to all for this presentation. So we can start sharing the screen. So it could be this one. I'll try and keep my talk within an hour. So is it like that? Good, okay, Tamsin, like that? Oh, okay, you muted. I'm Adrian Gatt, founder of the Grow 10 Trees project. We started way back in May 2017, and it was between me and my son, who was then just 14 years old. So it's never too early or too late to start being active. So we'll go through the slides straight away, so it won't take long. I might skip some basic information. So what are trees? I think by now we all know what a tree is. They are large woody plants. They live for several years. And why are they important? They generate oxygen, so they give us the air we breathe, and they obviously take the carbon dioxide to give us the oxygen. So they clean our air from pollutants. They provide shade, especially in the summer, everybody running for shade. They make a place aesthetically pleasing. They actually do lower temperatures if you compare temperatures in summer between cities and say Dingley or Rabat, you would know what I'm talking about. They provide wood and fruit, and they're vital for the ecosystem. Parts of a tree, I think we can skip this slide. Okay, so we'll be talking a bit on local trees. If I ask you what trees you know of, many will just mention maybe the oak, the Carib, olives, and maybe a few more. And it was the same with myself up to 3 years ago. But amazingly, in Malta we have 60 different types of trees alone. Not to mention the bushes, where we have hundreds or even up to 1,000 different species. So we have a good choice of trees which we can use both in the urban context or outside in the countryside. They are well adapted. They have survived all these years in this climate. Some were here since the beginning of creation or a bit later. Some were introduced. Obviously, the effects of mankind has been influential on the amount of trees, and many trees were eradicated over time for various uses. It could be for shipbuilding in the old times, nowadays to make way for roads, for example. And obviously we've got the common trees, like for example the Carib, and we've got some rarer species. Does it sound okay, Tamsin? Everything okay? All right. So
everything's fine.
Good, great. Some technical words. So, what is an archaeophyte species? These are species that were introduced more than 500 years ago. The demarcation is such so that we would know that they did not come from the Americas. So any species introduced before 500 years ago, so we're talking well before the Knights, or a few years before the Knights, they are called archaeophytes, and they can now be considered as local as well. Species that have been introduced in this era are the Aleppo pine and the Carib trees, which, if not mistaken, was introduced by the Arabs in Malta. So actually, these species were not here since the beginning of the island of Malta. Then we've got the indigenous plants, which have been were not introduced to the island, but were here since time immemorial. The difference with indigenous plants is that you can find them in different parts of the globe. So you can find the Sandra gum tree and the Spanish broom, even the Holm oak in other parts of the world. So you can find them in the Mediterranean area and other sites. Okay, and this is the difference between indigenous and endemic. Endemic are species that are found only in Malta. As far as I know, there are no endemic trees, but we've got some endemic plants and flowering species. One of them is the Maltese salt tree, the sheb. It can be found close to the coast. It is not the most common one, which we call the shorbet. The sheb is darker in color, and the leaves are smaller than the shorbet. And also, for example, the Maltese pyramidal orchid, which is also endemic. The problem with an endemic species is that they are only found in Malta. So if somehow we manage to lose them, it is a species lost for all the entire world. Then we've got the endangered species. As I said, the effects of mankind have left their effects on the flora and fauna in Malta. For example, the white willow, Zabzava kbira, is very, very rare. There's some in Chedwick Lakes. Other species, for example, the luo, although it is not uncommon, it's not so common, it has a problem that only one sex is available. Strangely enough, all the trees in Malta are male, except for about 2 or 3 trees which are female. So I've been trying to propagate the female species, but till now I have had no success. So when you have species like the white poplar, where you have only just one sex, the only way of propagating is by taking cuttings, which actually is you're cloning the same tree. So the danger of cloning is that if you somehow have a disease which enters the island and this particular clone is weak, you will easily lose the whole population. And obviously another issue which is endangering species is overdevelopment, all right? Where we're taking vast tracts of land to convert to residential, industrial, or roads. And it's also leaving its impact on both the flora, which is the plant kingdom, and the fauna, which is the animal kingdom in Malta. Moving to alien species. So practically alien species are all those species which do not grow naturally in Malta. So most of the house plants that we have at home are all alien species. And these are introduced by human intervention. The issue or these alien species normally do not survive in our environment. So if you get a plant, a house plant, a normal house plant, and put it in the middle of Majjistral Park, most probably if you go the next day, you'll find it dead and dry. So actually most alien species are not invasive and they are not a threat to the local flora. But there are exceptions to the rule where we go to the invasive alien species. The issue with these species is that they found the environment in Malta which suits them, and they are actually thriving in our environment. Being imported, normally they do not have any natural enemies, and they tend to spread at a detriment to the local flora. Many people tell me, but why? The trees are nice. We need more trees in Malta. But the issues with the invasives is that they can literally take over large swaths of land and destroy the original species. For example, Cape sorrel, which is the arsu, didn't exist in Malta up to 200 years ago. There was this English lady, that's why we call it Taninglisa, who got this single plant for Agoti. Nowadays, we can't imagine the countryside without Cape sorrel. The question is, what have we lost from our species when the Cape sorrel infested the whole countryside? So there's this issue. Another issue with invasives is, for example, what happens mainly in summer in valleys. We've got some wise people who actually tend to burn the cane, the asap. What happens? The cane burns from the soil up. With it, all other species growing. For example, if you go to Chadwick Lakes, going down the bridge from Intarfa, there are some poplar trees, and obviously there are the smaller shoots which are growing, and they were competing, but now they cleared up the area. Every summer, somebody was burning all the cane. The cane burns out, all the saplings from the natural local species get burned out as well. Within 2 weeks, you'll get the cane growing again, because the main sort of trunk of the cane is under the soil. So within 2 weeks, you'll find that the cane has grown again. The only difference is that in the meantime, all the local species which were competing with the cane have been burned down, and so you've got eradication of local species. And by the way, as well, the cane is considered as an invasive alien species as well. It was introduced, and as most of you know, many valleys are just choked with cane. The same happened in Mosta Valley. There were fireworks. The whole valley got fire, and also with Igbir in Ormi, Hazabuch. If you go now, you'll find that the plants that have grown first were the alien invasive species. So actually, they've got an advantage, and they outcompete the natural species which are more slow growing. Going back, the top right is the castor oil. You can see it practically in every nook and cranny on the island, and the spread has been here for, I don't know, for quite a long number of years. And this takes us to this slide where we have the newcomers. The middle picture is the fountain grass. We know was planted by ELC in the roundabouts. So these, I think, 3 species have been here for maybe just 20 years. They are relatively newcomers. But for example, the fountain grass going down Melliha Hill, you'll find that most of the hill is filled with fountain grass. It's spreading quite fast as well in the Birkara bypass. And now near Luxol and St. Andrews as well, you can see large bushes from the fountain grass. Again, the problem with these is they spread and they grow so fast that they will outcompete the natural species. To the left, you've got the lead tree. It's a nice tree, what many people say is, but it's so nice. It's a very nice tree. It has sort of a summery look. It has bright green leaves. But again, if you look at at central strips, you'll find that it's practically in every central strip around Malta. So that's another problem. It practically does generates, I think, millions of seeds. Each pod can have up to 30 or 40 seeds, and a tree would have hundreds of pods. So they've got literally thousands of trees pouring all year round and spreading everywhere. A different invasive species, the balloon vine. Being a creeper, it tends to spread over plants. With bamboos is a classical case, where there is a large stretch of carob trees and other local species, and they're literally covered like a blanket with this balloon vine. Obviously, the trees won't get the amount of sunlight they would need, and they could really choke the local trees and even smaller bushes and stuff. So that is the main problem of the invasive alien species, that they literally outcompete, and they could literally swipe out the local species. So, quick look at the 4 types of habitats. The garrigue, which is mostly rocky land. We've got areas in Pembroke, in Majjistral Park. Most of it is garrigue. When I was young, garrigue was also mentioned as wasteland. It's barren land, it's barren rocks, nothing grows there. Nowadays, it's given more importance, was considered to be, with regard to biodiversity, it's more diverse actually than a wooded area. The different number of species you find in garrigue, both flora and fauna, so insects, pollinators, mammals, you would find in a garrigue. You won't find them in a woodland. So garrigue areas are quite rich, although they don't seem to be maybe so beautiful. They are very rich in biodiversity. The next step up from garrigue is called the steppe. So we've got grassy areas. Most probably the areas where Majjistral are doing deforestation was previously considered as a steppe. area. So we've got low-lying grass, but no trees. Being exposed to high winds over there, it's difficult to grow certain species there. But eventually they will grow. This can be seen also with the campsite, which is of the Scouts, which is close by to Majjistral Park. Again, going one step further up is the maquis. This is mainly valleys where we've got a few trees, a few shrubs, some grass. It's a mix. In my opinion, it's one of the nicest environment, but what a mix over there. And then they've got the woodlands. In Malta, we have three main woodlands. So it's Busquet, which was a previous hunting grounds, and now we've got L-Aħħar and Mizib, which are nowadays hunting grounds. Okay, going next, the space situation in Malta. Over here we can see we have huge problems. Urban areas, roads and disturbed land covers literally, this was in 2012. So this is, we're saying that 2012, nearly 10 years ago, we had a third of the Maltese islands, which have been somehow turned into urban areas. I guess this area, this number from has increased, owing to the thousands of square meters have now been taken, both for further development and for extended and widening of roads. Agriculture, 27%. Probably it will be going down because many farmers are giving up on actually farming, or they are retiring. Bare land, 8%, shrubland, organic, 15%, grassland, 11%, forest and woodland is just 5%, and water and wetland is probably one of the lowest worldwide with regards to fresh water. So comparing a bit to Europe, Europe has just 7% of its area converted to urban areas, where while we're saying that Malta has 33%, so compared to Europe, we have utilized our land, I think, quite inefficiently. 5% is forest and woodland, and green areas are constantly under threat due to overdevelopment. For example, there's a tendency that green spaces are spaces waiting to be built. And there's a case at the moment in Gżira, the Tashbish garden. Obviously, they want to relocate the pumping station, the fuel pump petrol station, which is next to Manal Island. Obviously, they will take part of the Tashbish gardens to relocate the petrol station. So in Malta, a green area is there just in case we need to build something. The same thing I was in Marsa Scala. There's a sort of a garden next to the church, and there's some development going on in this garden. So unfortunately, we're not appreciating the advantages of green open spaces. Malta is one of the countries with the least fresh water available. Practically the only fresh water we have is the one underground from the water table. And we have to somehow stop the urban sprawl and take care of green spaces. As we know, reduction in green spaces will cause loads of problems, psychological to humankind. So that's an issue we should be taking care of as a country. Urban greening, but we can do something. Many of you have been abroad. For example, I've been to Milan. Milan is quite a dense city, but wherever you are, you always can see some green somewhere. They've got enormous trees. They've got these buildings with the balconies full of plants and, I don't know, creepers. So why can everyone do it except here in Malta? Why are we eliminating all trees, plants, whatever there is in center strips? We're literally cementing all center strips. So roads could actually be a good place where one can do urban greening. Then there's the question that many people say, but the roads, the trees, they what do they break the roads, and obviously we have 60 species, and you can get also species from outside, alien species that have a tendency not to have enormous roots. For example, the ficus is one of those trees that, yes, it does uproot, it does destroy or break trees, but we have many local trees. For example, the leus, the almonds, the virgi, which are trees that remain literally dwarfed. They grow maximum to 3 meters. Their root network is also quite limited. So I think we can use local species to green our roads. So, all right, we're good on time. So the law, there is the legal notice 258 of 2018, which talks about protection of trees, and there are at the end of the legal notice there are 3 lists. So the first list consists of trees that are protected in every location in Malta. So if it's a development zone, if it's an urban area, if it's ODZ, or whatever it is, these trees, the trees in this list are protected. The second list, for example, the Carib falls under the second list, protects these trees in special areas. So if there are areas of special protection or ODZ areas or green areas or rural or green enclaves, the species in this second list are protected. The third list is a no-go list, which is the trees which are illegal to plant. So among them are the species we saw in the previous slides before, where we discussed the invasive alien species. So it is illegal to plant the fountain grass. It is illegal to grow the lettuce. And there are a number of trees. Unfortunately, the law states one thing. What actually happens out there is different, because we know that we get people literally planting the fountain grass in their front gardens. So close to Majjistral, there is one of the side roads leading from your center to the church. I don't know if it's still full of fountain grass, but it used to be full of fountain grass there. So in this law, it tells you what you can and what you cannot do. But unfortunately, the law doesn't stop there. If you have a tree which is in the first list, which is in a development zone, you can still apply for a permit, and if granted, you can still remove it. So honestly, the trees are not really protected in every sense. So unfortunately, permits are given, and trees are killed and removed. Okay, so now something we can do: collecting seeds and cuttings. So this is part of the work we do as the Growth and Trees. To collect seeds, one actually needs a permit from ERA. The Growth and Trees, being a public entity, has this permit. But before, even when my kids were young, we used to go around and collect seeds. So you need a permit, but obviously you can go around and pick some seeds. Then there are also special sites, for example, sites like Pembroke, where even myself, having a permit, need special permission to collect seeds from over there. Okay, so that's we're mentioning what the law states. Seeds, ideally, when we're collecting seeds of local species, we have to try and find the original local sources. Unfortunately, the many trees that are being planted, especially, for example, if we go to Valletta, where there's a Triton fountain, most probably where you see that the government or whoever it is plants 2-meter high trees. Most probably those are imported from Sicily, from Spain, from Greece, I don't know where. So although they are Holm oak trees, they are not the same Maltese strain. So let's say if I want to collect Holm oak trees, I would try and find the original local sources. I would go to Busquet, there's a 1,000-year-old tree. In Dina, just above the main entrance, there's a huge oak tree. So pine, Aleppo pine, there's some in near Selmoon, which are very old from a remnant pine forest. So it's important we try and collect the original local seeds. When collecting seeds, with the packet, you would ideally put the location from where the seeds were collected. And when collecting seeds, suckers are those sort of small trees growing under adult trees. You do not collect all the seeds. It's important that you collect only just a small percentage so that you will let nature do its course. So birds will have seeds to eat and spread around, to win the wind to do its work to spread the seeds. So just take a small amount of seeds. Obviously, while going for the seeds, don't do damage to the trees or break branches or trample. Be careful under your feet as well. Be careful for trampling over shrubs to get seeds. What I do is literally when I have time, I'm in the countryside. I look here and there for seeds. I collect some seeds, species I don't know. I usually take photo of the plant and the seeds, and I post them on the Grow 10 Trees Facebook group. And someone from the members will normally identify the species. So obviously you will start building the information and knowledge on local species as well. In fact, that's how I've learned all this stuff. How to sow? Some seeds are very easy. Just put them in the soil and they grow. Some are successful, very successful. Some are very difficult to grow. Some need some form of treatment, so it's either cold or warm treatment. For example, carrots, if you just put the seed in the soil in a pot and water it, success rate would be, let's say, 20%, and it might take 4 to 6 weeks for carrots to sprout. If you put the seeds in a glass, pour nearly boiling water, so it will be 95 degrees water in the glass on the seeds. Let the seeds soak for 24 hours and you plant them. You will increase the success rate from, say, 20 to 50, 60, 70%. And I've had many cases that within 8 days, the seeds would germinate and you would have the saplings popping out of the soil. You can find some information on our website. So you place the seeds directly. I normally use normally use a mix of soil and compost. It all depends on the environment you have, how hot, how humid, how wet. Soil tends to keep a lot of water. Compost tends to dry quickly. So it's a wet environment, shift to more compost than soil. If it's a hot environment where the pots tend to dry up quickly, use more soil than compost, and soil stores more water than compost. Again, not all seeds like the same environment. Some seeds literally would like to swim around in their pot. Others would like to stay very dry. For example, chaste tree, when you put the seeds in a pot, you have to keep the soil humid till the time when it's about to sprout. Chaste grow normally in valleys. On the other hand, Aleppo pine, snowbear, once they sprout, you literally have to stop watering. If you just put a bit more water than you should, you lose all the saplings within 2-3 days. So normally once they sprout, you stop watering for 4 weeks. Maybe you give just a few literal milliliters of water every week, just to quench a bit the thirst. But the soil has to remain rather dry. The seeds are normally put just below the surface. The rule of thumb is if you have a seed, just let's say 5 millimeters in diameter, you put it just 5 millimeters below the surface of the soil. If it's 1 millimeter seed, usually put it on the surface, mix the soil with your fingers so that the seed remains at the top. If it's, for example, like almond, so there we're talking about a 2-3 centimeter seed, you can literally put the seed about 2 to 3 centimeters below the surface. In what to sow, you can use seeding trays, yogurt cups, or else directly in pots or milk cartons. These past 3-4 years, since I've been growing our trees over here, I found out that every time you move a sapling from, say, a seeding tray to a cup, and from a cup to a pot, you are risking the chance of killing the plant. So what I do is I sow everything in milk cartons or in pots. I put more than one seed, so it depends on how successful they are, to avoid repotting the saplings. So the cycle is you sow, you care, and repot if necessary. So on the right, where there's the repot, that's what I actually use. The black crates you can get for free from the greengrocer. Soil and compost mixed, and I sow directly in milk cartons. The advantage of milk cartons is for the depth they have, they take less surface area. So in the same space, for example, in a crate like the one over there, I can easily put 18 pots. Whereas if I use the plastic pots with the height of a milk carton, I would probably put only 4 or 5 pots in the same area. Also, the advantage of the milk carton is it's quite deep, and trees like what's in the picture, like the Aleppo pine on the front, there are the calyx at the back. They like rather deep pots. Once they sprout, they get the taproot, and it really goes to the bottom of the milk carton. Some sowing tips. Again, as I said, I do them straight in milk cartons. So nowadays I'm avoiding seeding trays. The number of seeds depends on success rate of the seeds. For example, almonds are quite successful, so I normally put just 1 almond seed per box per milk carton. When I'm in doubt and I have a number of seeds, I sometimes put, for example, fringe drew, fagel, or zebuji, or any other bush. I normally get a pinch of seeds. Could be 10 seeds. I put them in the milk carton. What grows, grows. What doesn't grow, doesn't grow. So if you seeding trays about 2 weeks after they sprout, you need to repot. But again, experience has shown me that simply moving the sapling with soil and everything, or compost and everything, from the seeding tray to the milk carton. I had a particular species. When I did that, I lost half of them simply by moving them by repotting. Obviously, the milk cartons you have to put, or pots or whatever you use, you have to put drainage holes at the bottom. So make some generous holes at the bottom. The black crates are easy to handle, even if you simply have a balcony. You would like to clean a balcony, just get hold of all the crates, move the crate from one side to the other, wash whatever you have, the balcony and stuff, and move it back. So it's quite convenient. When sowing, I normally write the sowing date, the species, and I keep a database of all the seeds I collect and from where I give them a code. So I also write the code on the tray. In fact, I'm going back one photo. The middle photo has those sticks with a code. All right. From that code, I would know when the seeds were collected and the location from where I collected the seeds. This information would be important when we would need to plant the saplings in special areas, not in a public garden, but in areas, for example, like let's say Pembroke, or I think myself probably not, but Pembroke being a Natura 2000 site, you can't just go and plant anything you want. So if there is a planting session or something in Pembroke, they must have a guarantee that the seed has come from a particular place. So that's the importance of that code or the location. So going to watering. Watering is quite tricky. From experience, I found out that you could easily kill hundreds of plants by overwatering. Again, even last summer, I managed to kill a few saplings with overwatering. There are plants like almonds, like the chaste, where the sapling warns you in advance that it's dry. You see the leaves drooping. Once you water them, within a few hours, you see that the leaves got new leaves of life. There are other species like the Holm oak or the Caribs, where one day you've got loads of nice saplings. Within a week, you find that they're all brown, and they won't give you a warning. And once they turn brown, that's the end of them. So there's no going back. Obviously, normally, again, keep the soil slightly moist. Again, depends on the species. Obviously, from May till the first rains in October, November, you have to water most probably twice, 3 times weekly. And also, sometimes even in winter. For example, last winter, we know that we had a long dry spell after December. We had practically 3 months, January, February, and March, without any rain. And in fact, we had to water both the trees at the nursery and the trees we have planted during events. In summer, make sure that the saplings are in a cool, partially shaded place. Avoid also strong sunlight on the pot, especially if the pot is black. It tends to warm up the soil quite a lot, and roots do not like warm environment. So even the advantage of having the milk cartons in a crate, sort of they take care of each other, they shade each other, and keep the soil and the pots rather cool. Saplings are taken care of. You can keep them in pots between 1 to 2 years. We've planted even Carib trees as young as 9 months, and they did succeed. But normally we try and keep saplings in a pot for up to 2 years. It's not ideal to leave them more than 2 years because they might get pod bound. That is, the roots get so dense that when you put them in the ground, the roots find it very difficult to get out from the shape that they got themselves into. Having done all this, as I said, some trees might still die off. So don't get discouraged. The only secret to have live saplings is to sow a lot of seeds. Sowing just 10 seeds might get you to see 5 saplings if you're lucky, and the 2 might die along the year. If you're lucky, by the end of the year, you might have 2 saplings. If you plant hundreds or thousands, you sow hundreds of thousands of seeds, your success rate will be higher. So, as I said, trees are placed in permanent sites, normally when they are 1 or 2 years old, and again, it depends on the species. And tree planting is held between November and April. The more you do them towards November, the better, so that they would have sort of whole winter where they can grow, spread their roots in a mild or cold climate. If you go towards April, practically have to keep on watering from April around the whole summer. With regards sites, it could be within your locality. So it could be either a public garden, park, swings, a centre strip as well. So all these can be used, or ideally you need to discuss with your local council. Also, you can discuss with relevant authorities. If you work with certain authorities, you can see if they have available sites where you can do the tree planting. You could also join us at events. For example, 2 weeks ago, we had an event in Zurich. We planted 136 saplings. Next Sunday, we will be in Zaytoun at the end of Chowsley, and we'll be planting another 100 saplings for the second consecutive year. So what comes next? So every year we need to sow more seeds. So there's not an issue of doing or sowing seeds just for 1 year, but year in, year out, we have to keep on sowing seeds that will have enough trees for our events year after year. When saplings are placed in the ground, they would need watering for between 2 to 3 years. So if it's raining in winter, there's no need to water, but when the hot months come by, so after May till the first rains, they would need watering. Normally when we have events, we liaise with local councils, or else we have volunteers to water the trees for at least 2 or 3 years. Once they survive 3 years in open grounds, the roots would be deep enough that the plants can sort of fend for themselves, and they can live alone. They wouldn't need any more watering. Obviously, what we are doing now, we will not reap the fruits ourselves, but it will be our the future generations which would hopefully thank us for our efforts. What and when to sow? In the next sections, I've got some examples of certain species. It's a tricky question. Many people do ask me, but when do I sow these seeds, and where do I put them? It depends a lot on what we call the microclimate. For example, where I have my nursery here in Slima, unfortunately, I have a 6th-floor wall which shields the garden for 6 months from the sun. So actually, literally, I have 6 months without any sun in the garden. So the environment there it's cold, it's wet, and it's humid. So sowing seeds in November isn't a good idea in my garden. Whereas if there's an area where the site is hot, the sun reaches it quite a lot, November would be a good time to sow some seeds. In fact, I had a case where I had the same batch of seeds. I planted a lot in my garden, another lot, another site, which is south facing. In my garden being north facing, success rates was 10-20%, whereas the same batch of seeds at the same time of the year in a warmer location, success rate was as high as 80%. So this is more about experimentation. You have to try some seeds in November, some seeds in January, some seeds in March of the same species, and see what grows best. So it's not a straightforward question and answer. So let's go quickly because time is running out. Carib tree, which is the haroop. So the pods. Later on, I'll give you the website. On the Growth and Trees website, there is a section where we've got information on various species, how to sow and how to take care of them. But we'll go through these quickly, just to get an idea. So, for example, haroop. So, coming August, I normally go around and look for some carrot trees. I collect the pods, normally mid-August onwards. Then you have to open the pods, get the seeds out. As I said before, the success rate, sowing success rate increases when you put the seeds in hot water, and then you leave them in the same water for 24 to 48 hours. So the success rate really literally shoots up. Sowing could be in autumn or in spring. Water regularly, quite simple to take care of, but ideally do not overwater, because the trunk or the stem close to the soil would rot away. I'm telling you from experience. I killed about 40 with overwatering. I got rot on the trunks. I had 3-year-old carib trees. They've been in milk cartons for 3 years, and I killed them within a week. They literally turned brown. Sandra gum tree. Seeds, the pods ripen around August to October. It's more towards September. You can see in the picture, they are like small cones. Maybe it's about 1 to 2 centimeters in diameter. In September, they start opening. Inside, you would find about 2 to 6 seeds. There's no treatment you need to do to the RR seeds. Sowing September, January. And again, this tree doesn't like a lot of water, so keep it on the dry side. Especially these saplings that don't like water, they tend to die just after they sprout. With overwatering, the roots rot away and they die. It's the same thing with snoober. You can have 200 seeds, all of them will sprout. Within a week, they would all vanish simply because the water is a bit too wet. All right, the same thing goes for RR, the same thing goes for the cypress trees. Holm oak, so that's the picture of the acorn. It's still not ripe. When they are ripe, they turn brown. You can, for example, go to Indina, just go to the ditch below the main gate. You'll find loads of jandar, we call them Maltese, which are the acorns. Pick them up from the floor, and you can put them straight away in the soil. What you can do before sowing them, just fill a bucket or glass of water, put the seeds in the water. The ones that float are not viable. They just throw them away. So the ones that float are to be thrown away. They would have probably insects inside and they would have eaten the fruit. The ones that sink are good to sow. Sowing, obviously, January after you pick up the seeds till March. Again, in wet environments like I have here, when I tend to sow them in January, by March, April, they would have been in such a cold and wet environment that the acorns tend to rot. In fact, last year I collected some acorns in March from Gozo, and the success rate was higher because March this garden starts seeing the nursery starts seeing some sun, it gets warmer, and I had higher success than in January. In January, I sowed about 150 trees and the seeds, and I only got one successful. So again, the microenvironment does play a crucial part. Water regularly. Again, do not overwater. This is one of those trees that today it's growing nice. Within 2 days, you find it brown. It would have died away. Cypress trees, again, you can collect the cones. Do not collect the green cones, but collect the dark or the brown cones. They would have been ripened. Seeds these cones. So the cypress, the snowbird, the oak, sorry, the pine, and the arar. If they are closed, just put them in a bag, put them in the sun. With the heat, they will open up, and you can get the seeds without forcing the cones open. Preferably sow in spring. You can soak the seeds for a day or two. And again, the cypress would need minimal watering. The bay leaf seeds can be collected between October and February. There are some bay leaf close to the water course at Buscat. The seeds are like black olives, roundish, not elongated like an olive, but they are quite roundish, size of an olive. If you would like to store seeds that have flesh or fruit, it's important to remove the fruit and the flesh, wash the seeds and dry them before storing them, or they will get moldy. The bay leaf is quite easy to grow. Water regularly. It likes a fair amount of water, honestly. The chaste tree, this grows mostly in valleys. There are you can find this tree in Rab al Hamra. There's some in Duera and Gozo, Comino, there's by Santa Maria. The nice thing about this tree is that it flowers between June and October. The seeds are like peppercorns. But put them in a pot and keep the soil humid, and they normally sprout around May. So if you plant them, if you sow them in November, they will still sprout around May. So ideally, you sow in March, so they won't spend all that time in wet soil. This bluebird, I said again, pick up the cones, put them in a bag, and put them in the sun to open up. And they do not like water, especially the first 4 weeks after they sprout. So, coming to the end, I think this is the last slide. So, the growth and trees, who we are. We are it's mainly a Facebook group. It is not an NGO yet. We are aiming to become an NGO or foundation. And it encourages members to grow trees, plants, and birds at home. These same saplings which you grow will be used in our events. Members obviously have to be active, very important. We have many passive people on our island, so we need active members. So just grow your saplings at home, go on Facebook, show us your successes. When we ask for saplings, it will tell us what you have. All right. So the Facebook group, just type in grow 10 trees and you should find it easily. There's a group and a page. We mainly populate the group. And there are there's more information going on the group than on the page. Encourage family members, colleagues, and friends to join. And take note of the website. It's www.g10t.eu. There is practically all this information, or most of the information I've said today. You can find it there, and there is loads more information over there. So I think from my side, it's a big thank you for joining us. On to you, Tamsin. I think I spoke enough today.
No, thank you so much, Adrian. That was really informative, and
Thanks.
hopefully it's going to encourage lots of people, and it shows that it can be done and that we can contribute to helping the natural environment. And growing trees is one of the best things we can do.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, the statistic that you mentioned, 5% being forest and woodland, is a bit crazy.
It is.
So if everybody works together, and your initiative is so brilliant. I don't know if you want to mention as well about collecting seeds, that you have a system where people can send you a self-addressed envelope.
Yes.
And that you'll send them seeds, so then they can just get started in that way, can't they?
Yes. In fact, I'm out in the countryside all year round. As I said, I try and collect wherever I see seeds. I collect. So I have a quite a good amount of seeds, and the idea is to share seeds with the public. So we do it for free. So it could be either at events, for example, like next Sunday. I normally take the seeds with me, and whoever wants seeds can come and take some. Also, there's a system where they can send me a self-addressed envelope. Again, if they go on the website, in the contact section, they can find my address. They can send me self-addressed envelopes. In it, they can put a note, what species they prefer and how many pots they intend doing. So I can calculate how many seeds I will send them.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
In fact, one point I can mention is I am not an expert in the field. By profession, I am an engineer, so nothing to do with green stuff. But through the rodent trees in the past 3 years, I've got to learn loads of stuff. So there's nothing so difficult that any one of the members of watching us at the moment can't do. So it's simply a trial and error. Getting the first bluebird took me 5 years to note that overwatering would kill them. I used to have literally hundreds of saplings sprouting every year. Within 1 week, I would lose them all, and I had to wait for another year to try again. So it's trial and error, and they can pose questions on our Facebook group, and they can get information straight away on how to do certain stuff.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And also, if people need somewhere to plant them, we were talking about doing a joint initiative. So if people start to plant after this session, then get in touch with Adrian or myself at Majjistral Park, and we can organise having a tree planting session when your trees are old enough to be planted. So we just have, I'll just tell you the questions that we had.
All right.
So somebody was asking, how is it best to keep the seeds between collecting and sowing them?
It's always like food. It's a dry and cool environment. As I said, seeds that have flesh or fruit, they have to be cleaned up, or else they will rot or get moldy. So it's important that you remove the fruit and the flesh, wash them thoroughly, dry them well, and then store them preferably in a breathable container. So that sometimes it happens to me. I have plastic containers. If the seeds are not dry enough, they will get moldy. So if the amount of seeds is small, ideally you can use paper bags, which is breathable, and they will dry, they won't get moldy. So it's that simple. Keep them somewhere cool and dry, and they would last quite some time.
Okay, that's good idea about the paper bags. And then somebody else was asking, how easy is it to grow Anzalor to hawthorn from seeds, and is this endemic?
I don't think it's endemic, but it's indigenous. And it is very difficult to grow. So simply putting a seed in the pot, if successful, you will get the first sapling in 2 years, because the seed has to pass through a winter, a summer, and a winter.
Okay.
So you can fool the seed by doing what I mentioned, the treatment. So you can do, you can put it in the fridge for a few months, then take it out and put it somewhere warm for a few months or a few weeks, and then put it back in the fridge to simulate another winter, and then you sow it. That way you would let's say save 1 year. But again, success rates, because I've been putting seeds in soil. I put usually hundreds of seeds. Till now, as far as I remember, I only had about maybe 5 successes. So it's not one of the easiest.
With the hawthorn?
Yes, the hawthorn, the Anzalor, yes. Anzalor or Zarum.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so it's quite a difficult one.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But anyway, do not get discouraged. It could be that the environment where I'm growing them is not, or the soil I'm using is not suitable for that particular, but even the soil, how acidic or how alkaline it is, it does affect the seed. So being non-technical on the subject, I could be using the wrong type of compost or soil, and my environment being cold and wet might not be the best environment. So somebody else could try it, and it could be fairly easy for him to get some good success. So just this is mostly by experimentation. And you take note of what you're doing, so that the next time around you would know what's happening and what has changed, and you would know why you're getting success or failures.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't know if anybody else has any questions they'd like to ask. I think you can unmute yourselves, but if you can't speak to me in the chat or the raise your hand, I think that's by clicking on the button reactions that you can raise your hand. If you actually want to speak to one of us and ask a question or make a comment. Otherwise, in the chat, you've got lots of praise about the presentation and lots of thanks from people.
I haven't seen it. Thanks. All right. So hopefully it was informative.
Yes, no, it was definitely.
And it was clear enough for everybody.
Yeah, no, it definitely was, because sometimes there's too much information, but I think the way you split it out was really good and quite good to follow. You have a school wanting to collaborate, so to participate in the project. So
all right. The email.
I can pass on their details to you.
All right. The email is grow10trees@gmail.com.
Okay. Okay.
So I'll type it. I'll type it here. So it's grow 10 trees@gmail.com. So that is the email address, and the website is www.g10t.eu. All right, so everybody can copy the details from the chat.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
In fact, we do liaise with many schools. In fact, in Gozo, there's a program going on, and I've sent, I don't know, 2,000 seeds to do a project between 5 different schools. I think it's called Stream. It's with Leaf of Johan Gatt, and there's a something called Stream. They're doing. They started it today. They have shared the seeds with the schools today. So there are 500
I think
students.
I've seen some of their posts.
Yeah. Hi, Adrian. I'm here.
Maybe Ramona, yes. All right. Can you give us more detail, Ramona, about
Yes,
the
sure. Because, hi, I'm Ramona. I'm a geography teacher and I'm also an Eco Schools Link teacher in Gozo, but I also coordinate the GLOW program. So this year I was thinking of this project which Adrian mentioned. And yes, we have 7 schools, in fact, joining on this project. And over 560 students. So basically, we will be giving out these seeds of 7 different species of indigenous trees. The students will sow the seeds, they will observe. We are going to link it with science as well. That's why STEAM challenge. They will not only sow, they will take notes when they sow, they germinate, and they will measure the plant or tree growth, and eventually they will take these saplings at home and repot them. In this way, not only we are encouraging students to get more sort of learn about the importance of trees, but promoting also science within primary schools. And yes, it will be linked with the LEAF program and the Eco Schools program besides Globe.
Okay, brilliant.
Thanks, Ramona.
Yeah, great.
Thanks to you, Adrian, because he supplied us with the seeds. Yes, with lots of seeds. I sorted them out per school. Also, the schools will do research on the 7 different species. And then, due to COVID, we will do an online event in March, April, on Earth Day. And each school then we will give them a mature tree which they will plant in their school garden. So hopefully it will be a very interesting project to raise more awareness about the importance of trees.
Wow, that gives me such hope for the future. Thank you for that, Ramona.
Thank you.
That's such good news.
Thanks,
That's an
Ramona.
amazing initiative. Right, I don't know if nobody has any questions. I might let Adrian go and have a rest now because I think you deserve it. No, thank you so much for the presentation. It was really good and I think on topic at the moment. So, and hopefully people will go away and take the initiative like these schools and start planting.
Hopefully, yes.
So if anybody if anybody has any questions, so Adrian's put his email there. I should have put mine as well. Just do that quickly. Yes, so please get in touch. As I said before, we're going to be doing these events regularly. So if you're interested, send me your email address and I'll sign you up to our mailing list so that you hear about future events, online events. And if you want to collaborate on an event as well, so if you have an environmental topic that you'd like to talk about, a non-controversial one, as much as possible. So yeah, just please get in touch. So thank you very much, everybody. And Ramona's just posted some information about Globe and the STEAM challenge. That's brilliant. Thank you, Ramona.
Will the chat be available for a few minutes or no? What will happen once you close the chat?
I think once you end the meeting, everything might disappear. So hopefully everybody's seen that. So basically you can follow Globe Malta on Facebook for updates. So I follow them, you just need to type them into Facebook. And yeah, so it gives updates about the STEAM challenge in collaboration with Grow 10 Trees.
There's a note.
Somebody said you can save the chat. Oh,
you can save the chat on those 3 dots.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I just did it. Brilliant. Thank you for the tips on Zoom. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you all for joining, and thank you especially to Adrian. Have a good evening, and yeah, get planting.
Thanks, everyone, and good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.